On Russian
TV this morning, the news that Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin would meet after being confirmed by the Kremlin. Just hours before, Trump was in the White House teasing that a meeting was imminent, and then confirmed on social media, saying it would take place next Friday, swapping territories hinted at as a way to agree a peace for Ukraine.
President Putin, I believe, wants to see peace, and Zelensky wants to see peace. It's very complicated, but we're going to get some back. We're going to get some switched. There'll be some swapping of territories to the betterment of both.
The location of the meeting will be the US state of Alaska, where there's only a few miles between the US and Russia, but it's more than 5,000 miles from Ukraine. And at the moment, the planned meeting there is without Ukraine's president, who today insisted his country would have to be involved to find a lasting peace.
We will not reward Russia for what it has perpetrated. The Ukrainian people deserve peace, but all partners must understand what a dignified peace is. Any decisions that are against us, any decisions that are without Ukraine, are at the same time decisions against peace. They will not achieve anything.
Giving up Ukrainian land, Zelensky insists, wouldn't be allowed under its constitution. And after everything Ukrainians have fought for, it would unlikely be supported in a referendum either.
You're gambling with the lives of millions of people. You're gambling with World War III.
But with the bad memories of that Oval Office meeting earlier this year, Zelensky has to navigate cautiously, particularly if Trump is looking to apply pressure again to get what he wants.
Thank you.
And what Trump wants so badly is that Nobel Peace Prize. He declared himself the peace president on social media overnight, having brokered a deal for Armenia and Azerbaijan yesterday. The tactics make it difficult not just for Ukraine, but also for Europe, which the White House is now said to be leaning on.
If Trump suddenly takes Russia's point of view in understanding the war, then Europe will be forced to openly disagree and take a different view. And this would threaten a crisis in NATO, a crisis in the transatlantic alliance.
At the Foreign Secretary's official country residence in Kent, David Lammy and Vice President J.D. Vance have been meeting with national security advisors from the US, Ukraine and Europe to discuss Ukraine. The UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer among the leaders of European countries, calling President Zelensky this morning to give their support and reiterate that pressure must be kept on Putin. Last month, Trump threatened to impose sweeping tariffs on Russia if Putin didn't make moves to end the war.
We get a lot of bullshit thrown at us by Putin, for you want to know the truth. He's very nice all the time, but it turns out to be meaningless.
But it seems if the Americans have the watches, Putin has the time, and no sanctions have yet materialized. 3 decades ago, Ukraine, having declared its independence, was briefly a large nuclear power, and a big chunk of the former Soviet Union's stockpile was based there. On a winter's day in Budapest in 1994, the then Ukrainian President Leonid Kuchma met with Boris Yeltsin, Bill Clinton and John Major and agreed to give up Ukraine's nuclear arsenal in return for security guarantees. But Ukrainians ask, where are those guarantees now? In Kherson this morning, help for those injured after a Russian drone struck a bus. Regional authorities say 2 were killed. And people here believe Putin will always want more, no matter how many lives have to pay for it.
Francis Reid reporting. Well, of course, this conflict has a long history leading up to this moment. Let's take a look at where things stand right now after 3.5 years of full-scale war. Russian forces currently occupy almost all of Luhansk region in the east and around 3/4 of Donetsk region, where the fiercest fighting is taking place, around the strategically important cities of Pokrovsk and Kostyantynivka, which Russia is trying to encircle. But giving up the whole of the territory would mean ceding heavily fortified lines, which Ukraine has built up for years, as well as the major industrial cities of Kramatorsk and Slovyansk. In the south, Russia also occupies a huge swathe of Zaporizhia region, including a major nuclear power plant and the cities of Melitopol and Berdyansk. And they control roughly 3/4 of Kherson region, including the Nova Kakhovka Dam and the North Crimean Canal, which is essential for keeping water supply to Crimea, which Russia illegally annexed in 2014. Russian forces have also pushed into a small part of Kharkiv region in the effort to seize the city of Kupiansk and to get within artillery range of Kharkiv city itself. Ukraine puts the number of Russian casualties at more than 1 million since February 2022. There were just over 900 Russian casualties in the last day alone. Well, a short time ago, I spoke to the Ukrainian opposition MP, Oleksiy Goncharenko, and asked him what he felt about the prospect of Vladimir Putin and Donald Trump meeting to decide on Ukraine's future.
First of all, we need peace in Ukraine, and as soon as possible. That's why there is a lot of hope. At the same time, there is a lot of fear and concerns because we don't understand what are the conditions. We don't believe to Putin at all. We understand that he doesn't want to end the war, but he wants to take Ukraine completely. And that's why, for us, it's very important what will be conditions for this ceasefire or freezing of the conflict, because we can't say that can be a resolution, because it doesn't look that Russia is going to leave occupied territories, and Ukraine is not going to accept that these are Russian territories. So we're speaking about freezing of the conflict, and very important is on what conditions. So that's why we have a lot of hope, but a lot of fears too.
Well, President Zelensky has already said that Ukraine will not give up any territory. That seems to be at odds with what President Trump is going into these talks intending to do. Is he going to throw President Zelensky under the bus, do you think, President Trump?
Me personally, I think that President Zelensky now should keep publicly silence. We all saw the meeting in Oval Office in February, this disaster. Nothing good was from this. No for Ukraine, no for United States, no for Europe. Only one person was happy, President Putin, or Russian tyrant Putin. And it's a time for a very serious, maybe even tough diplomacy, but it should be, at the closed doors.
Contrary then to what President Zelensky has said, do you think that there are concessions, territorial concessions, that Ukraine could and might make?
If we're speaking about recognizing Ukrainian territories as Russian, this will never happen. Ukraine will never accept this. We have constitution. It's just impossible. If we're speaking that Russia will continue to control territories which are currently occupied, it looks that we're moving in this direction.
But for some people, it might mean not just giving land, which Russia already controls, but also giving land beyond that. Is that feasible from a Ukrainian point of view?
I think it's very hard to sell to Ukrainian people. We need to understand what territories we speak, what can be in exchange. And President Zelensky should work hard right now, together with his team, to try to receive for Ukraine the best possible conditions.
Except Ukraine's not involved in these talks. President Zelensky is not going to be at the table.
But President Zelensky is now in the connection with President Trump, in touch with his team. And in the end of the day, if there are conditions which will be agreed by President Trump and President Putin will not satisfy Ukraine, nothing will happen. It's not American forces which are fighting in Ukraine. It's not American army. It's not American boots on the ground. It's Ukrainians who are fighting and dying every day.
You don't think this ends with President Trump doing a deal and saying, take it or leave it to President Zelensky in Ukraine?
There are things which Ukrainian people will never accept. For example, as I told you, the recognition of our occupied territories as Russian, impossible. Limitations to Ukrainian sovereignty, about, like, for example, the size of Ukrainian army, military production which we can have and so on. Impossible. But there are some other things which are probably possible, but we need to understand what we're speaking about.
Just finally, you don't think that even if there were some sort of deal, that President Putin would stop there? He wants the whole of Ukraine, doesn't he?
Yes, he does. But I think President Trump has enough of leverage to make Putin stop, at least for the moment. Then it will already be in hands of Ukrainians and our allies to make impossible for Putin to start war again.
Oleksiy Goncharenko, thank you so much for speaking with us.
Thank you.
Well, joining me now from Athens is the former Lithuanian Foreign Minister, Gabrielius Landsbergis. Thanks for joining us. Have Ukraine and the Europeans been totally blindsided here by President Trump and President Putin?
Well, it's if we have been, then it's on us. I don't see any major surprise here to what is happening because it was all announced even before the presidential election in the United States. President Trump has always been very clear that he does not take Ukrainian future, he doesn't keep Ukrainian future close to his heart. He doesn't care that much about European security that much, and that he wants to make the deal with President Putin.
Now it's crunch time, isn't it? Because this is not pre-election talk. This is talk directly with Vladimir Putin on Friday, and President Trump is a man who likes to announce a deal. So what are Ukraine and the Europeans going to do?
Well, that's a very good question. I think that we are entering a zone where a pact, as I would call it, a Putin-Trump pact, will probably be presented to the world. It's pretty clear as to what Ukrainians can do about it and are prepared to do that. I think that President Zelensky made it very clear as to where they stand. Now, the main question remaining is what Europeans are going to do. And I think that the only honorable option here is to stand fully with Ukraine, to support Ukrainian territorial integrity, to continue supporting Ukraine, to double our support to Ukraine. And unfortunately, if the United States would choose a shameful path in this regard, well, Europe has to keep its dignity in mind.
Do you expect any deal that President Trump announces to have security guarantees for Ukraine as part of it?
Well, we haven't heard about it, but I mean, the security guarantees should be serious. Ukraine has seen its share of security guarantees with the Budapest Memorandum in 1992, while it gave away its nuclear weapons, where again, United States and other nuclear powers gave its assurances to Ukraine. We see where it got them. We've seen Minsk agreements, we've seen so many other things, and none of them worked. So if anybody is serious about the security guarantees, we should be talking about NATO Article 5. Then maybe that would be an argument for Ukrainians.
And we hear that European leaders are scrambling around trying to produce a counter proposal for these talks in Alaska. What would that look like?
Well, look, I mean, I'm just frustrated that we lost so much time. We tried to appease Putin. We tried to appease President Trump, with calling him daddy and whatnot. But we did not do the thing that was important. We did not prepare. And now we're scrambling to figure out what needs to happen before the Friday meeting. Well, the only thing that needs to happen is that Europe stands with Ukraine. And that is that. We cannot repeat the mistakes of 1938. We cannot repeat the mistakes of Yalta and Tehran conferences in 1944 and 45. And we have to start a new page for Europe where Europe actually supports its allies and supports itself.
What do you think the Foreign Secretary, David Lammy, is saying tonight to the US Vice President, J.D. Vance? I mean, they're having talks themselves. Can he persuade him in any shape or form?
Well, if he can, he would be a hero, not just for United Kingdom, but also for Europe and Ukraine. But he has to have a plan B in his pocket. This is what the main question that I have to the leaders who had meetings with President Trump throughout the last months. Do you have a plan B where United States and European and Ukrainian interests do not converge?
Do you seriously think then that Europe is going to have to take on the entirety of this project alone? That after Friday, there's a scenario in which President Trump says, take it or leave it, and sort of washes his hands of it?
Well, there is a very big possibility that this is happening. And if Europe doesn't do that, well, then it's time to prepare that, that any European country will be a next target for Putin's aggression. And it will just continue. So it's better to start now if we haven't started yet.
Okay, Gabrielius Landsbergis, thank you so much for speaking with us.
Thank you.